I hope you completed yesterday's assignment. I believe that you would have wrote that post.
Yeah, it was working fine, Sunil. Okay.
Yes, that is the slide, right? Yeah. So now your service should return mobiles. If I send the mobile ID, if it is there, it will return a mobile ID, that particular ID mobile. If the mobile ID is not found, then you would have been getting some exception, right? Yeah, fine. We are throwing it, right? So that exception. Later we will convert that into a proper exception handling. And then we are saving the mobile, deleting the mobile, updating the mobile, all these things are done. For saving, we are giving the status like 204, right? I believe 204 created. So that's how things are done yesterday itself. So today we're gonna add few more topics, right? So yesterday we completed fully controller versus REST controller, request mapping, get mapping, put mapping, delete mapping, patch mapping. Okay. So today I will complete this consumes and produces, then we'll jump into the next slide. We already completed path variable. Okay. So as I already said, we may not be able to use all the concepts which we want to learn in our microservices. So the topics which we are not able to use in our microservices, I will teach them in a separate example. Okay. So yeah. So now we're going to learn about consumes and produces. As yesterday said, we are service provider, right? We are service provider. So when I say consumes, right? When I say consumes, which means the data we gonna consume, right? Service provider, the data which we gonna consume. So producers means the data which we gonna send it to the client. Producers means the data which we gonna send to the client. So we are service provider. So which means we're gonna provide some services. It can be a mobile service or a product service, right, or a cart or shipping or anything. It can be any kind of service which is going to be a RESTful or SOAP service also. So we're going to provide some service and somebody is going to consume that. Excuse me. So in your point of view, you have to consider consumes means the data which you're going to get from the client. Produces means the data which you're going to send it to the um, uh, to the to the client. Just a second, guys. Okay. So now we will directly see one example. Okay, no more theory. So we will write one single endpoint. Okay, we will write one single endpoint. Okay, so we have like two clients. Let's assume that we have two clients. One client we need to give like this is our service, and there are two clients who gonna consume. Okay, one is this is like client one and client two. So client one want JSON data and client two want XML data. With the same service, the same response. Like for example, in our yesterday's example, right? Let me switch to mobile services workspace. In yesterday's example, like client one will come and ask that, hey, I want the mobile information in JSON format, and client two and come and ask that I want mobile data in the XML format. So we don't write two methods. We will write only one method based on some header parameter, right? Based on some header parameter, our framework Spring itself will handle this requirement, right? So based on some header parameter, our framework Spring Boot, right? Spring Boot or Spring MVC will automatically give this JSON data to the client one, and will automatically give XML data to the client two. Let's see how it's going to be happen and what is that header parameter. Okay, yeah. So I will get a mobile ID. Okay, mobile ID, and right now the default response which we are giving back is the application JSON. So let me run this code and show you. Okay, so yeah, it will take a while to uh, get the service started. Meanwhile, let's discuss. Okay, so when I hit mobile ID, okay, so it's going to be 8080 mobiles slash mobile ID. Right? Sorry, it should be some number. Okay, let's send this. Oh, sorry. It's a wrong workspace. They're connecting to the database. If I send mobile ID, I could see some JSON data, right? So if I want to get the data in the XML format, okay, XML format, then we need to pass one header parameter, okay. There are two important header parameters which you have to remember. One is content type, okay, and the second one is access, okay. So the content type means it's now it's like from which point of view you are thinking, okay. So it is like little confusion thing, like for example from postman, right? From postman, uh, yeah, sorry, there are few people waiting. Hey Venkat, you join, right? You join, okay. Yeah, so yeah, so content type means in a postman, right? Postman means client point of view. So the data which we are sending to server, okay. Accept means the data which server sends to client, okay. Hey Venkat, sorry, I didn't check the waiting log, sorry, I admitted you. Okay,
Yeah,
so
okay, sir.
yeah, content type which we are sending to the server. So content type means you have to say what type of data you are sending. So when I said what type, so it's going to be an application slash JSON, which means we are sending the JSON data, or application slash XML, it's going to be an XML data, or text, right? Text slash HTML, you are passing some text data. So there are so many MIME type, right? Multimedia types are supporting by HTTP. So you can send anything. It can be an audio, video, or anything, but mostly in a services point of view, we will be playing with the JSON and XML. Okay. So you have to say in the content type section, if you are posting any data to the server, what type of data you are sending, okay. So whether you noticed or not, whenever we are saving a particular mobile, right, in the body section, we are sending JSON data, and we are from the drop down, right, we just open body tab, we clicked on the raw tab, and we pasted this JSON data. From the drop down we selected JSON, right? So it like UI format you are doing it, but in the background what is happening in the header section, there is something got added, right? Content type application slash JSON. You just check yesterday's example if you did it in your local, right? In the body section you're just drop down, you're selecting it and JSON, but in the background what is happening, we are sending content type application slash JSON. So we are sending some information to the server saying that, hey server, I am sending the data in the JSON format. Tomorrow if you would like to send the data in the XML format, then you need to set, right? So actually you don't do that, you just simply select XML format, right? From the drop down you select XML. So automatically your content type header parameter will be converted into application slash XML. So what is happening in the background? So we are indirectly, right? We are directly, I mean, we are just indicating to the server, okay, what type of data we are sending. The same way, in by using accept parameter, we will inform to the server saying that in what format we are expecting the data, right? What media type. Okay, I want the data in the JSON format, or I want the data in the XML format, right? When I said I means client, it can be a curl command, it can be a postman, it can be a Java application, it can be a browser, any HTTP client. If they want the data in a particular format, they have to use accept header parameter. So when you use accept header parameter, what we are doing, we are instructing Spring server saying that hey server, can you please give me the data in the JSON format? If I send application to JSON, right? So we are instructing server saying that, hey server, can you please give me the data in the JSON format? If you are sending application slash XML, so we are instructing server saying that, can you please send me the data in the XML file? Based on this accept parameter, client accept header parameter, which is actually a request header parameter. Based on this single parameter, now we will give a different formats of data. Okay, based on the content type header parameter, we can still accept two types of data. If he send the data in the JSON format, we will process JSON. If he sends XML format, we will process XML also. So these two are from client point of view, content type and accept. Consumes and produces are from service provider point of view. Don't get confused. So the below two are service consumer or subscriber or client, whatever it is, a different just synonym for client. Okay. So it's like we call provider and consumer, right? Provider or consumer or publisher or subscriber. These are the combination words. When you use provider, then you should use consumer. If you use publisher, then you should use subscriber, right? So if you use server, then you should use client, right? Something like that you should use. So we are using terminology provider, that's why below it's consumer. So somebody tomorrow, someone says like subscriber or client, don't get confused. It's just synonym for consumer. So in the service provider point of view, it's like consumes and produce. So which means what data we consume and what data we return back produces. In the client point of view, it's going to be content type and accept. Content type means what data we are sending to the server. Accept means what data we're gonna accept. What type we're gonna accept. So for example, now I'm just sending this request. I'm getting the data in the JSON format. And whenever we are posting the data, we are sending in the header JSON format. So for example, for a particular mobile, right? For a particular mobile, if I wanted to retrieve the data, then I said just send. Okay, how to start this out? We just switch to the workspace. Let me start this. Right? If I send this, you'll see that header parameter accept what is going to be coming back. Okay, so get no header parameter, no content type, because we are not sending any data. We are saying that I can accept anything. /star means I can accept any type of data. If you wanted to accept a particular type, then you should say application/JSON. I want the data in the JSON format. If you want XML format, then you must say application/XML format. But anyway, what is the default format? What server is going to give? We will see. The server started. Let's send the request. You get the response. Just go to the header parameters and see. Right. So what data type you got? You got like JSON format. Right. You got some JSON format. Now we will restrict. Right. I want to JSON the data in the XML format, or I want the data in the JSON format. But before that, we should do the service side changes. What should I do? My method should be in a position to give, right? My method should be in a position to give both the types of data, XML data and as well as JSON data. So how we can do that, right? How we can do that? First of all, to give the data in the JSON format, you don't need to do any extra changes. By defaultly, a Java object will be converted into a JSON format. Okay, there are so many libraries are available like Foster XML, Jackson library, JSON from Google, right? So there are so many libraries are available. So by default, it's a Jackson library. Spring MVC is going to use Jackson library. Yesterday we saw it, HTTP message converter, Jackson HTTP message converter. So to convert this Java object into an XML data, okay, by default the things won't be working out. So you should add few annotations. On top of your class, you must add XML root element. Okay, so the default element is going to be mobile. If you want to give a different root element, right? So you can just say small case, right? Mobile. And each property inside your inside your model class, it should be annotated with XML property, the XML element. So the default one is going to be your Java. If you want to override, yes, you can override. Okay, you can just give name equals to, let's give like mobile hyphen ID. Okay, it works. Okay, name, yes, you can give a different name. If you don't want to go change the name, you can keep it as it easily, and you should add one more for price. Okay, so these annotations you have to add to get the support of XML, right? To get the support of XML, these annotations you must be adding on top of your model class. Yes, now let's go to controller, and yeah, now we should add two more uh, annotations here. It's not annotation, just small changes. Okay, so the first thing is this value, right? URI, and now I can say in what format we want to give the data. Produces. Anyway, it will take an array. So you can multiple ways you can produce the data. So the first thing is like media type. Try to avoid using hard coding data. Okay, just use enums media type dot application. Okay, JSON, right? Application JSON underscore JSON, comma media type dot application. Okay, slash XML. Just go down somewhere you see XML. Okay, so I think we need to pass the strings. We'll go use value and we'll pass string. Okay, so now my our service, it's not my, it's ours, right? So our service is going to support both formats, right? We can give the data in the JSON format and as well as XML format. So now client should ask in which format he wants the data, right? Now the client should ask. So now our service is capable of producing data in the JSON format and as well as in the XML. So now the client should ask in which format he wants the data. So how can client ask in which format he wants the data, right? So he can say to, I mean, he can do that by using a header parameter saying accept. Okay. Okay, I'm not able to change it. What I will do, I will add one more header parameter. Accept. I will just uncheck the old one, default one, and here I will type application slash JSON. Okay, so I'm now telling, hey server, can you please give me the data in the JSON format? So when I send this request, you get the data in in the the JSON format. What's up? Let me send the request. Where is the
No,
response?
check the body now. You're not checking
No,
the
there
body.
is a request. No body here. The parameters.
So you are passing get. You have to pass post. So you're trying to get on this. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. Here is the response. Okay. So I think we are passing JSON in the request. Below is the response, right? Here we got the response. If I just simply change this to XML, okay, application slash XML, now we will get the data in the XML file. Just scroll down and send. You see, there is some exception came. Fine. Let's go ahead and see. 4 counts illegal annotation. 4 counts illegal annotations. Get name, price. Class has two properties. Oh, price. Class has two properties. Is price. Let's go to mobile.java. There is something wrong with these annotations. Just a moment. Let me remove these extra fields. Try that out. Still, there is an exception. Mobile does not have no arg default constructor. That is the problem. Okay. The
It's not
problem
able to
is,
create the object.
yeah, it is expecting a zero argument constructor. Let's add that. Okay. Yeah, wait for a second. Now let's go and hit it. Class has two properties ID. I'm using correct notation. Just putting down. Let me check. Oh, default it is showing XML root element and XML element. With Java X bind only. The problem is mobile.getID mobile. It's a simple thing. Why it is making us to get confused? Maybe due to this super call. Let me do this.
Yeah, super only, I think, because it is again trying to create right object. That is why. No,
3 counts of illegal annotations. Get price, price with fruit cost, price, get price, 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 get price. Okay. Don't.
it is better you said add on get.
No, it should work. Okay. Adding an property also, it should work. I have a working version. You just need to compare. But anyway, let's add it on top of the getter methods. As we have developer tools added on the build path, it will be so it is working.
Yeah.
So it is trying to execute 2 times, right? ID and get ID. So that's why that problem came. But anyway, just add it on top of your XML element. This will work. Okay. If you just change the header parameter back to JSON, right? So based on the client requirement, you will give different types of data. Okay. So if he's asking for JSON data, we'll give JSON data. If he's asking for XML data, we'll give XML data. So based on the header parameters, your method can produce multiple types of, based on the request header parameter accept, a single method can produce multiple types of data. It can produce JSON data, it can produce XML data. Okay, so one method can able to produce multiple types of data. The same way, a single method can accept 2 types of data formats, right? So So instead of produce, you have to mark it as consumes. So now you will start accepting 2 formats of data, XML data and JSON data. So in the post, you can send XML data if you want. If you want to send JSON data, you can send JSON data. No problem. Okay. So till now we are sending only JSON data, right? If you want to send an XML data, still you can do that. This is not our endpoint. Where is our endpoint? I think MSK mobile. Okay. Nice. Yeah. So if you want to send a different data, you can send, but make sure you select XML, right? JSON cannot understand this format. That's why the error is coming. Just change this drop down to XML. Now the error would have gone. So I think we added till 8 plus 7, right? Now let's add 8th one, Nokia. and some price 15,000, right? So single method can accept two types of data. So now just send it. So let's go and check the header. Content type is now XML, right? Application slash XML, because in the body section from the drop down we selected XML. Now that will be saved automatically, right? You got successful 201 create. So if you just go to get all mobile, you could see that 8 mobile added. Yeah, I forgot to add context, right? MSK. Yeah, you will get that 8 mobile added now, right? So single method is capable of adding, I mean, capable of supporting multiple media types. Okay, and a single method can support multiple endpoints also. For example, a getter method, you gave like mobile ID, right? If you want to give a different endpoint also, you can do, because it is a string array, right? Get mapping value, it's a string array. You can do multiple request parameters also, right? Same endpoint, you can give it to the two clients with two different endpoints. So it's like, it is also possible to give two URLs for one endpoint, okay, from service provider point. So that is all about consumes and produce, content type and accept. Okay, content type and accept. So by using these consumes and produces, we can control the data format. Okay, in the service provider point of view. In the client point of view, it is content type and accept. So any questions with respect to this? Okay. So we already learned path variable. Yeah. So let me go to. Let me open a different workspace where I want to where I want you to see the remaining example. Request data, cookie value, request param, array param, right? Yeah. Spring Boot MVC workspace. Okay. So meanwhile, I will tell you the difference between request body and HTTP entity. Request body, HTTP entity. So in our REST endpoint, one place we used request body. Do you remember that? Where we do use request body?
When we will have controller, when you're using only controller at that time.
No, no, no. That is for response body. Request body is for when
Yeah, if
you
saving when you're saving the mobile or something.
yeah. So when the data is coming in the request body, you use at request body annotation, right? So in the post mapping and put mapping, we are using request body. Okay. So when you use request body, you will get only the request body section. For example, in the post method, in the request body, whatever the data you are sending, right? So that particular part alone you can control. But on top of that, if you want to read some header parameters, right? Header parameters, still you can do that by using HTTP entity. HTTP entity. So HTTP entity is a combination of request body and request header. Request body and request header. So what you have to do first, get the HTTP entity. Later, to extract the body from the HTTP entity, you must call get body. Get body, and this is HTTP entity of type mobile, right? HTTP entity of type mobile. Then you must uh, use generics mobile equals to http entity dot get body. So it also has some other method. Okay, it also has some other method to get the header parameters, right? Get headers. So if you want to read header parameters, then you have to use this method, right? So for each it's, you're gonna get a map. You can just iterate that map and print all the header parameters if you want. So k dot toString, it's going to be toString. It's going to be the header parameter key. So we are sending header parameters in the key value pair, right? Which is map, right? A map in the Java. So value. So HTTP entity is the combination of header and request body. So wherever you wanted to have some control on the header data, then you can use HTTP entity. If you just want only request body, then you can use at request body. Okay, so that is what is the difference between request body and HTTP entity. The same thing it's applicable for response body also. Usually whenever we are using REST controller, we don't specify the response body. It is a defaultly added annotation. But sometimes you want to give some header information, right? So that time you can use response entities. That is the reason why in some places we will return response entity, right? Some, for example, when the mobile ID is null, right? For example, whenever the whenever we are getting mobile ID as input, right? Get mobile ID. So when the mobile ID is null or zero or negative value, then I wanted to give um, 404, right? 400 bad request, 400 bad request. So for now, if the mobile is not found on the database, we are throwing an exception. Instead of making a, okay, for at least for negative values are zero, instead of making a DB call, we can say the request itself is a bad request, right? So how we can do that? So usually you can add at the response status and you can do that. Instead of adding that, right? Instead of adding response status or throwing some exception, what you can do, you can return like response entity, and we're going to return response entity of type mobile. Okay, for example, if the mobile id is instead of, yeah, if the mobile id is less than or equals to 0, mobile id is less than or equals to 0, then what should I do? I should return response entity object saying that bad request, right? So we can use response entity dot status http status dot bad request, right? Bad request will. So you can return this, or if it is mobile id is not, mobile id is not less than or equals to 0, then I want to make a DB call and get the mobile information, right? So the second section also, we should generate the second part also, we should generate a response entity. Then I will say okay means 200 body. I'll set the mobile information whatever is coming from the database, right? Yeah, it's going to be dot build. um think build is not required. Okay, it will automatically mobile. Okay, you should close this dot. Okay, yes, so we are good. Okay, if mobile id is less than or equals to 0, right, I will return a bad request. If it is not less than or equals to 0, then we will make the DB call. If it is some positive number and the number is not present in the database, then we will throw runtime exception, right? So let's start the server, go to the postman and try to send the positive scenario, right? Let's just positive scenario. I'm expecting the data in the XML format. I hope it is started. Let's send the request. You got the response, right? Send it's 0. It's 0. Instead of getting 500 exception, we will get 400 bad request, right? 400 bad request. And if you send some value which is not there in the database, this time you'll get an exception, right? 500 internal error, right? 500 internal error. So if it is JSON, then default exception handler will convert that exception into JSON format, right? So 500 mobile not found. Yeah, 500 mobile not found with the given mobile ID. Okay, so by defaultly Spring Boot has extendable support for JSON, right? So if the client is expecting in the header XML, so we don't, our default exception handler cannot convert exception into XML format. So that's why the body section, right? When there is an exception, right? For XML, so we are getting only 500 internal. But if you are expect the data in the JSON format, then our default exception handler will convert the exception into a JSON format, right? So this is also the Spring Boot default support for JSON. So no default support for XML. So if you are expecting the data in the XML format, then you have to implement default exception mechanism, right? Anyway, we have to implement exception handling mechanism, that exception handling mechanism. So there are so many ways we can do it. Once we jump into that, you can try the same request to get data. You get the data in the XML format, right? Error data in the XML format also, but default XML won't be supported. Okay. So at least now we are able to control, right? So 0 or minus value, we are not making the DB call. We are simply returning bad request, right? So the response entity is a combination of response headers. Response entity is a combination of response headers and response body. But whereas returning a direct, right, returning a direct model, which is like response body alone. Anyway, at response body is optional whenever we are using REST controller. That will be automatically taken care by the REST controller. Okay, so now we understood the difference between the request body HTTP entity, right? Request body HTTP entity, response body and response entity, controller versus REST controller. Yesterday itself we understood, right? There are some parameters you can collect it in as part of your request processing. So like at the request header, at a cookie value, right? At request param, which is nothing but the query parameter. So here is an example. Spring Boot Java config. Yeah, Spring MVC Java config Java. So there are a couple of examples we wrote it. We already wrote some code. We will try to understand. So let's go to controller. Okay. Yeah, city controller. So yeah, if you pass ID, right, we are producing the data. It will be taken and it will be getting the data from the service. It is again hard-coded data, no DB call. Some hard-coded data we will fetch it, right? So right now there are two cities are there, Kabul and Kandahar. So you pass that ID and you can get that city information. So yeah, sometimes you can get request param. Request param is nothing but query parameter. It would have named like query param, but somehow in Spring it is named like request parameter, which means it's going to be a query parameter. So how do you send the query parameter? Should you send like question mark, right? Question mark ID equals to, right? So this ID section will be handling by using this request param. Right? If you want to get any request header parameter, particular request, the HTTP entity means you get all header parameters. Request header means a particular header parameter. You want to get it, then you can get it by using request header. It is also possible to collect cookie parameter, right? You can send some cookie parameters, right? And those cookie parameters also can be collected by using at cookie value. Okay, get cookie value. So we will run this. We will run this code and we will see examples, right? So it's a plain only the direct one. So we can just, I mean, we can directly run this and we can see the response. So this is not a Spring Boot application. So I have to run this on the server. So right click, run as server. So again, our favorite Tomcat 9. I think my system is not interested to run applications on external ROM. Whenever I run this, I start the server, it is getting hanged. It loves Spring Boot a lot, I think. It will take a while to let it run in the background. Okay. So request header to collect a particular request header parameter, cookie value to collect a particular cookie value, request parameter to collect query parameter, right? So we will use this request parameter as part of Spring Data JPA. So whenever we are talking about database integration, right now in our microservice we are getting the data from hard coded, right? So in the mobile service, we hard coded some data and we are getting the data. But this is not the real time scenario. We should get the data from the database. So maybe in the future, right, for this service, we will do JPA integration, no JDBC. We don't write any SQL query, right? All the operations should be taken care by the Spring Boot Data JPA. All the queries will automatically taken care by the Spring Boot Data JPA. So there is one example I will show you. Like we do some kind of filter, right? So like mobile by name, right? If I send Samsung, I want to get all Samsung mobiles, and mobiles by price, right? And so some kind of searching we will implement it. I think Tomcat is not started. Oh, some process is already using 80804, right? My Spring Boot is using that 80804. That's why the server is not started. Let's stop the Spring Boot server and just run it again. Right click, run as server. Yes. Let's select the server. Okay, the server will be started in few seconds. Okay. So to collect the query parameter, we use at request param. Request body, we understood HTTP entity is a combination of request header and request body. And response entity is a combination of response header and response body. Okay, a controller means it's not for RESTful web services. So mostly we do write RESTful web services, right? So we do use REST controllers. Okay, yeah. So we will see one example, then we go to the next. Right. So let's just try to access this. Okay, let me see what is the context path we give. So in the Spring native Spring MVC, we configure the context path in the servlet configuration, right?
Yes.
Okay, so it's going to be Spring / right? So my URL should be localhost 8080, localhost 8080, context path which is my application path / servlet path which is Spring / let's see what is the resource path we give. Let's go to city controller, right? So the context path is city. That's a resource path is city. Um, the city ID is 1. Let me check what is there in the service. Right? City ID, yeah, 1. So when I send 1, you will get information of Kabul, right? Kabul, Afghanistan. City information we will get. Okay, so we got the data. So it is also possible, yeah, this is one. So we hit this method, then we will hit this get city ID with the request parameter. So right now we are sending the path variable. Instead of sending the path variable, we will send the data using query parameter, right? ID. So query parameters should always starts with ID, and ID equals to 1, right? So this is uh, we are giving the data back in the JSON file, right? One, Kabul, Afghanistan, and the population. So it's printing. We override the toString method. That's why the data is printing in that file. Okay, ID name, right? ID name, the city and the population. Okay, if you send the two, then you will get a different city information. Right? One. Right? So I don't know why I got interested in Afghanistan cities instead of Indian cities. Maybe at that time would have been like Afghanistan would have been popular. I took that example and I would have written. Okay, so this is how we do collect the query parameters, right? At request. So it is also possible to send cookie value. To send the cookie value, we have to use Postman. So the URL is cookie 1 or cookie 2. Okay, so let's go to the Postman. Just change the city to cookie 1, right? Cookie 1. And yeah, here is the cookies. Here you can add the cookie. Add the cookie. So name, right? Cookie name. It's a key value pair. Name, and you just add it. Um, you need to send the value also, right? Yeah. add cookie. Cookie one value. Let's give one more cookie, right? Key is a name. The value is okay. So I'm sending one cookie. Save. Just okay. It's added, right? Two cookies are going. One is JSON and another one is name. So let me send the request. You see that cookie will be printed on the console. Cookie one, the cookie will be printed. Okay. Yeah, see the cookie value we collected. So it is also possible to get the cookie and return some response back, right? Response entity. You can return no content also. So it's going to be cookie two. The URL parameter is cookie two and send. You see that the request parameter is collected. Request parameter is collected and no content. 204 no content. So last time we got 200, right? So this time, I mean 200 without data, right? That is not a good practice. When you don't return anything to the client, you must say no content, no content. So we used response entity, right? Response entity. You can use new operator or response entity that okay or body, right? There are so many ways you can create response entity object. You can use direct new operator also. Okay, so we said that no return type, no content. I don't return anything. So we return status code is 204. Okay, so this is how we do use cookie value, header parameter, right? Path variable, request parameter. So all these annotations, whatever we have discussed now, that this is how we do use it. Okay, don't get confused. Each and every annotation has its own um, I mean, its own task, right? Task implementation. So request mapping, get mapping, post mapping, put mapping, delete mapping, patch mapping for for URI mapping and for the remaining data, I mean, for the remaining metadata configuration. Consumes and produces will help us to control what type of media type we can send it to the client. Yeah. So and the remaining all are like utility annotation to collect the path variable, to collect the header parameter, key value, request query parameter, and yeah. So we use all these things, and there are few classes which are alternative for request body and response body. So where you can get header control also using these classes, right? Example, HTTP entity and response entity. Yesterday itself we understood the difference between controller and REST controller. Okay, so it's boring, right? Always sending the request from Postman and seeing some data. Let's do some kind of web application. These days we are not using JSONs, but few years back we used to do some kind of uh, we used to write some JSON, JSPs to control, but now it's full of React and Angular, right? So we lose the JSONs, JSPs, right? We lose the JSPs usage in the web applications. So now Java is for pure service implementation, right? So that's why we are talking all these JSONs and XML. But there might be some chance you have to work on the JSP side. So for example, if I will show what we're going to do it now, right? So first of all, you request from your from our browser. I go and say login, right? Say login, right? So then we will show some login screen to the customer. Okay, you do login. So once the customer is logged in, right? So I can put the sequence diagram. So first of all, customer enters some login request, right? So first of all, customer enter URL login. So then we will then the request will be coming to our login service. Then we will return login screen back to the customer. So customer will provide username and password. Customer will provide username and password. Okay. So it's going to be login. Okay. We will send back the login screen. Okay. Login screen will be displayed. Now customer will enter URL and password in the login screen. Then we will authenticate, right? If the okay, we will authenticate. Now we will send username in the password. Okay. Yeah, we will send the username and password. So we will authenticate. If the username and password is uh, valid, then we will store that information, right? Where we will store it? We will store that information in the session, HTTP session. This is what we used to do in the like 1990s or 2000s, right? 1990s and 2000s. And now the things got changed. No HTTP, stateless, right? All our web services are stateless. Every request you send it, there is no relationship with the last request or future request. So you send the request, I will give the response. Right? Session management is completely avoided from applications now. But in the olden days, we used to use this HTTP session. So once the username password is authenticated successfully, then we will store that information, user information in the session. If username password is wrong, then we will navigate back to the client saying that invalid username and password, right? So invalid username and password. So if authentication fail, again we will display a login screen. Again we will display a login screen saying that login screen with error message saying that username and password is wrong, right? Some kind of message we will show. If authentication successful, right? If authentication successful, then we will show him his profile screen, right? So what is his username? What is his name, password, some profile information, right? It goes to profile screen or dashboard, anything it's not. You call it dashboard or profile screen, something like that, right? So this is what it's going to be happen when you log in into any mobile, banking application, right? So you go and type like ICICI.com, HDFC.com, or Citibank.com. Then you send the request, you get the login screen, you enter the username and password, then you just click on submit or login, then the request goes to banking server. If username and password both are matching, that information will be stored in the session. If authentication failed, again you navigated back to login screen with error messages. If your authentication successful, then you will be able to see your dashboard, right? Your account balance and last few transactions, right? Those kind of things are going to be right. So, but anyway, we are not going to spend much time here because it's almost kind of legacy. Right now nobody is using Java for JS, Java for web application, like UI screens purpose, right? Mostly all banking applications also these days they are migrating into Angular and React. So no more JS, this nothing. So, but still, I want you to show this, right? So how we can achieve this by using Spring MVC, right? So first of all, we have a controller called login. Okay, first you enter login, get method, right? Login, localhost 8080, context path, Spring MVC, Java config, right? And you just enter login. Then I will return an index string. This is a controller, not REST controller, right? So when you return a string from the controller, then it will go and identify, right, the mapping in the configuration. So where what configuration we did, we used view resolver, right? Internal resource view resolver. So when you return a string from the login controller saying index, right? You just return an index. So here is the flow, right? So from browser, you enter HTTP colon localhost 8080, okay, 8080, some context path, right? Context path you give, then servlet path string you give, right? Then resource path login you give, right? So as soon as you enter, so it goes to login controller. From browser you just send it. Then there is one HTTP request created and it goes to that entire servlet lifecycle, right? From browser you just trigger it. It goes to server. It is not for static content. Then it goes to web.xml file or web application initializer. It will identify dispatcher servlet. It goes to service. From there it goes to handler mapping, right? So for login, so the log for login, the handler mapper will suggest execute login controller login method. Execute login controller login method. So from here, the dispatcher servlet will get a string saying that hello, not hello, right? Login or index. You get index as string, empty string. but it is a controller. It is a controller. So immediately it will check for a view resolver, right? So is there any view resolver is configured, right? By defaultly, it is an internal resource view resolver, but we did configure it explicitly. So it takes the prefix from the view resolver. So first of all, it goes to Tomcat server, server to web.xml or web application initializer. Okay, web application initializer. Okay, from there it will identify dispatcher servlet mapping. It will go and execute dispatcher servlet. Okay, dispatcher servlet. So internally, dispatcher servlet take help from handler mapping. Okay, handler mapping. So this handler mapping will say that, hey, can you go and execute the login control, right? It will say that, can you go and execute the login control or login method. So this execution is going to be taken care by handler adapter, right? At runtime, we will execute this. It will be executed by handler adapter. Okay, it's fine. Yeah. So once a handler adapter executes that method, you're gonna get a string. What is that string? Index, right? So now the flow, once the method execution completes, now the flow is coming back to dispatcher servlet, right? Once the execution completes, now we are in dispatcher servlet. Now dispatcher servlet, what it will do, it will verify is there any view resolver configured. Yes, there is one internal resource view resolver configured. Okay, so as per the internal resource view resolver configuration, so it will take the prefix. What is the prefix? WebINF JSP. Yes, then it will append the actual string which we returned from controller method, and it will again append the suffix. So the suffix is .jsp. So we're gonna get WebINF JSP index.jsp, right? So this is what is the internal view resolver job. Then it will be written back to dispatchers. Now dispatcher servlet will render this JSP and will display to the client. So the final response will be pleasure. So here the response is JSP rendering. What you will get? HTML. Would you be able to follow the flow? I'm just trying to show, like, from browser, when you enter the URL, what is happening. Right?
Oh,
It
yeah,
goes.
it is same like servlet flow only, right?
Yeah, it's same servlet flow only. Again, I'm just repeating. I'm just trying to explain you with view resolver. If it is a REST controller, right? It is a REST controller. It is a just controller. That's why view resolver came into the picture. If it is a REST controller, then no view resolver. Then the final response will be pressure direct. Okay. Now that is how the JSP page will be rendered in the in this example. So let's go to browser. If it's HTML, then Postman can't help us. So we need a browser help. So it's going to be localhost 8080. The context path is Spring MVC Java config. Servlet path is Spring. Okay. Resource path is login. So when I just click enter, you see some screen with the asking login. Server is running. So where is the controller? I think some URL form. Yeah, with the user slash log, right? So resource path spring slash user slash log. So as soon as I click enter, you see some screen. Okay, user slash logging in. Yes, we have to log in. Oh, sorry, the context path is Java config -Java. So I'm just trying with Spring MVC Java config, right? It's Java config -Java. Now you will see that. It will take a while to render the JSP page. Okay, it will take a while to render the JSP. So how you are seeing this JSP page? It is just because of this flow, right? As soon as you enter this URL, so this context path is your project, right? If it is Spring Web, if it is Spring Boot, right? So no context path, or you can configure the context path. when we are running an external Tomcat server, your application name is the default context path, right? When we are running an external Tomcat server, your application, your project name is going to be the default context path. So as soon as I enter this URL, what is going to happen? The request goes to servlet web.xml or web initializer. It goes to dispatcher servlet. From dispatcher servlet, no more do get do post. From here, it will take help from handler mapping, and it will identify the mapping. It will execute that mapping through handler adapter. Then finally you get some string. If the controller is, your login controller is annotated with et controller, then it will check for view resolver. If view resolver is identified, then it will resolve that view by executing that view resolver code. Okay. If it is not the at controller, if it is a REST controller, then whatever you're going to return from controller, that will be a final response. No view resolver. Okay. So due to all these things, we return, yeah, due to all this flow, we return index. So as per the configuration, right? Just now, whatever we discussed, as per that configuration, so you have some WebINF JSP, right? Index.js. So whatever you code, whatever the code you return in this index.jsp, right? This email, password, right? So all those things you are able to see in the browser, right? This user login, email, password, all these things you are able to see just because of this render, right? And in the, the Spring MVC has extendable support for um, HTML tags like form tag, like form colon form. So what is this form colon? It is taglib library, right? So JSP taglib library. So Spring has a very nice support for this taglib library. Like in a few years back, this was very famous in the market, but now no JSP, no taglib, nothing. Okay, so you can do some perfect validation. So why we use this taglib library? If you say Spring, if you use Spring library, taglib library, and if you say form colon input path email, path password, and if you say model attribute user, okay, when you click on submit button, you no need to collect like request param, you no need to collect. How much complicated Pojo it is, it will be automatically converted into a Java object, right? So there it is model attribute user, right? In the form colon tag, you set model attribute user, then it will be wrapped to a user object. So here you could have email, password, right? You're gonna collect email, yes. So from where that email will be mapped, so form input path email, this value will be dumped into, right, the automatic binding, data binding. That value will be automatically binded into this email, right? Email. And there is a next tag, right? Password, that will be automatically mapped into this password. So you don't need to do request param. So it will, Spring itself will automatically convert that model mapping into this user.java. Okay, so you can check the username is this and password is this. Then you give you just navigate to success.jsp, which is our dashboard kind of thing, right? Dashboard. If the validation fails, we set some error message, right? Login failed, to try again. So again we're gonna render index.jsp. If the message is present, then we will display in the bottom, right? Color red color, we will display that error message. If authentication failed, we will navigate back to the same JSP with the error message, right? Error message, and that corresponding error message will be displayed here. Well, better let's change this key, right? So it's error message. Yeah, I will mark this as error icon message, and we will display that error message in the index.jsp. Sorry, should be error icon. Okay, error icon message. So that particular error message will be displayed here. For example, in this screen, if I enter some junk value, right? Junk value, click on it, it will again, the request goes, validates, and we got 0. What is that 0? Um, what is the login controller? I think we're not supposed to use hyphens. Maybe do the change, save the file, go to index.jsp. save this. Let's go to browser. Just refresh. It's not to login, right? It's login. The entry URL is login. Login. Now we will give some junk value. Just click on login. Get that error message, right? So authentication failed. Whatever the error message we are setting in the login controller model, that will be displayed on the index.js. If you give the correct value, then you will be going to the dashboard, right? So let's give the correct value, and the password is at ABC at 1. Actually, in the real time, we will validate, authenticate this against the database or some other security mechanism. But for demo purpose, I'm just hard coding that. Okay, just when I click on it, you go to login success page. Okay, you are logged in into email with the email, right? So that is what it is there in the success.js. Okay, login success page. You are logged in with email, user email. And if you want to see the profile, click on the view profile link. It directly take you to info, right? Info. So info will be login controller info, right? Again, when you click on that link, you will be coming to info. So again, it sets that user email and first name, and it takes you to user.js. User.js. So here we will display complete user info. Just click on user profile. So you could see that first name, last name, middle name. Okay. So I would have provided the logout, but somehow I missed that. Okay. If you want, we can do that here itself. Um, Here we are displaying profile, right? Profile. Let's add some spaces. I'm not that much good writing HTML, right? So I just do some raw script, and I will provide some link here, right? So anchor tag, yeah, href equals to dot is the current context path, and we can say log, right? Log. So let's provide some text logout, right? So when you click on this logout, so it expects that there is one logout, there is one logout is configured. So let's write that method get mapping public. Yeah, so it should be for logout, right? Yeah, it should be for logout, and we should do the logout, right? So what we will do, uh, we will public um, return string, right? So we will again take the customer to the login screen, public string logout. So you just get the HTTP session. Okay, you just get the HTTP session, because we are storing this user object in the session, right? Session attributes user, session attribute user. We are storing that in the HTTP session. Let's remove it from the session, right? Session. HTTP session. Yeah, session dot remove attribute use. Now the user will be removed from the session. Okay, session, and we just go back to. If you want to kill the session, you can kill session dot invalidate. Yeah, you can kill the session. Whatever the information we are storing, you will just kill. You can take the customer back to login. Login, which is index, right? Index.js. Okay, so we are done with writing logout functionality. Just save all this. Okay, so server restarted. Now just let's refresh. Now it will directly. So session server restarted, right? The session would have lost. Um, let's take it back. Yeah, that's why we got this error, bad request, right? So let's go back to login. We'll come users login. First we go to login screen. Let enter valid data ABC at 123 is login. Now you will see the success login page. Just click on view profile, then the profile will be displayed, right? So we have logout option. You just click on logout, it takes you to this method, new method, and we will remove that, right? Remove that. And as I already said, for one browser, one session, right? So right now in this browser, I'm in this browser. Before logging out, sorry, before logging out, I will open another window of Chrome, right? Without direct, yeah, without logging in, I'm just directly typing this URL, right? Directly typing this URL. You see that it won't ask the login page because already the HTTP session this user is logged in, right? It will directly take to that. It will directly take to that screen, right? So when I click on the logout, it will be logging out. Again, we came back to index. So you can go back to this screen and you just refresh. As already that user deleted, right? User deleted, you will get that request. Okay, user is cache it over. Okay, so somehow the session is not working. Like, but the logout also should delete it. Okay, and we no need to write any code like session dot set attribute and all. You just use X session attribute. It will automatically store it in the session attribute. Okay, so this is how we do maintain session logging, logout and all. But anyway, it's like pure microservices. Now we are in pure microservices architecture. No JSP, no session, no model, no HTML, no font. Okay, but for your idea purpose, I just showed that demo. Okay, that's how we're going to use it. At model attribute, at session attributes, at session attribute, at request attribute. All these things we used to use in the legacy MVC application, right? And we used to have some strong support, right? Spring has strong support for um, HTML library, right? HTML tag library. So, but nowadays we are not used. Okay, so it's pure stateless microservices we are developing, right? Spring and Java, it's for pure stateless microservices development. So that's why no JSPs, no session, nothing. Okay, but if you get a chance to work on any legacy application where we are using JSPs and all, you might see all these things like model attribute, session attribute, and form tag, right? And some kind of configuration, some error handling mechanism. There is so much support is there for JSP. But anyway, we are going towards microservices, right? We are not going to learn any of these things. We are just simply we are just simply going to focus on uh, RESTful web services and SOAP web services. Kind of, okay, but it is also possible to develop a complete web application using Spring. Okay, supports. So that is all about all these annotations. Okay, and it is also possible to do redirect forward. Okay, this is not the Spring feature; it's again a servlet feature only. I will tell you where we use redirect and where we use forward. But before that, any questions? What's up? It's like pin drop silence.
No, no.
I never see this much silence in my academics also. In classroom, at least some noise we used to hear. But I get surprised, like it's like pin drop silence. Everybody, maybe might be because of mute or something. I don't know.
I think people went deep inside the logics.
Okay, so any questions,
And
Abhi,
you showed the
Chintesh?
login, right? It reminded of college. We used to do in BTech 7-8 years back. We used to develop in the same thing. MVC.
Yeah. No, not only that, if like any application, there are some supportive projects, right? Like where the clients doesn't want to invest money and upgrading their IT, right? So the projects which are written in 2005s or 2010s or 2015s, right? This 10 to 15 years, we used to have these kind of things. But now everybody is upgrading, right? They want to get benefit. So these days, like technology is changing drastically. Earlier, Java used to play a role in all the areas, right? Web layer, middle layer. Sometimes it goes to backend also, but now we have strict, right? Java is for pure enterprise. You should be in middle layer. Don't come to front end like that. Angular and React, Vue.js. These technologies are beating like anything. That complete PHP itself is gone, right? So it's almost all every project they are migrating it to Angular and React. And Java is for pure kind of this purpose, right? Like services oriented. Even I think it's same for .NET also. Even .NET also has extreme support for right ASP and all, but now no ASPs. It's like .NET also slowly they are migrating into services oriented architecture. Okay, so that is the reason why Microsoft brought Azure, right? Cloud. They also supporting cloud. Yes, they are also doing their kind of contribution towards this microservices architecture. But now no GSPs. At least now, at least any new service you're gonna write, mostly all this old technologies also they are started migrating it, right? All old JSPs and all they are slowly converting into React and Angular, and all ASPX pages, right, are slowly getting migrated um, into Angular and React.
What is this Node.js? Do you have idea? I'm hearing a lot.
Yeah, it is
Node.
like a kind of library. So server-side scripting technology it is, right? Right now, JavaScript works only on the browser. For example, if you try to read any system libraries using JavaScript, it is not possible, right? For example, by using Java, you can read any file in your computer, right? You can go to any file system, but by using JavaScript, I don't know whether you noticed or not, without without asking customer approval, right? Like for example, you are using, I mean, you opened a browser, right? If browser cannot be able to read your files configuration until unless you give the permission, right? So JavaScript doesn't have that kind of support. To overcome that problem, this Node.js got introduced. So at server side also you can write JavaScript. That is possible only with the Node.js. Before that, JavaScript is meant to be like validations and scream some actions and all. Okay, but you just try to do that, right? Without Node.js, if you are trying to read any kind of file system on your computer, it won't be possible. If JavaScript will not have access to the file system. If JavaScript would have been having the file system, having the access to the file system, hackers would have fully blast your every computer in this world, right? They will write some script and they will scan your complete computer, and it will go to each and every folder and it will get all the data. So that kind of support is not there, right? So that is the reason why whenever you open your computer, so any plugin installation or any file down, we have to be very careful. If you do some file download, might be that virus will enter into your system and it will go scan. So by default, it won't be there. That is the reason why we install all these antiviruses and all, right? So it will scan before that file download or any plugin kind of thing. So that's how the systems are getting secure. But when you, like, if that kind of support you want to get, you want to read some file system, that is possible through Node.js. But now Node.js also not that much popular. It is kind of library they are maintaining, right? So it got popular, like some kind of boom came for some days, but it's slowly gone now. Okay, so mostly like we don't use Node.js for service side fully. Now Node.js is being used for package management, right? NPM, Node Package Manager, where you store all the JavaScript libraries kind of thing, right? All the React libraries, Node libraries. But anyway, that is open source. They are getting extended, like extreme support from the world. Anyway, it's a good thing. Without Node.js, it is not possible to read any file system from the client, from the machine. So that is possible only with the Node.js. But now Node.js slowly got fade out. Node.js author, I think the owner got joined in the Google for Go language, right? In the Go language technology support. So it is there in the market, but it's not booming now. Okay, yeah. Let's come back. Even I thought to learn the Node.js, but I'm lucky because now it's recommended. Instead of learning Node.js, better you learn Go language. It's super technology. It's better than Java. But anyway, Java has its own features, right? So it's up to you what you want to learn. But my suggestion is, if you are interested to learn Node.js, just have a look at the Go language. Okay, that is better than Node.js. Okay, yeah, let's come back. Yeah, we will see this concept indirect and forward. Any questions? Any other questions? Please try to ask any questions. Please feel free to ask the questions. Right? If you are not able to follow or any confusion, any kind of thing, don't feel that simple question or like, right? So just maybe some things I will cover just because of your questions, right? Some particular corner scenarios I may not be able to remember, like I'm just going through this documentation, like
Sunil,
some.
this session thing right now, that is for stateful thing, right? Now everything is stateless, so this concept is almost gone, right? Like in market currently,
Yes, no sessions.
no sessions, right?
Yeah, but to give the backward compatibility support, that is there, but it's like kind of dormitory mode.
Yeah, yeah, obviously, like we cannot remove the old thing, but
Hmm.
like new development, so people are
Not
if
using it.
yeah. So how they're maintaining it now? Like if they're not using it, but somehow we need this, right?
No, no. Every time you need the like token-based authentication, OAuth2 authentication, we will be using it, right?
Okay, okay, okay.
Right. So we will send some token. So client,
Yeah, yeah.
AngularJS or React will store it and they will send
That,
it and we will validate
hmm
DNS.
Even we can do by HTTP key also, like header key validation
Yeah,
also.
we will do that. Okay, in our RESTful web services, as part of Spring Security module learning, right? We will do JWT token. We will send the JWT token, no HTTP session authentication in microservices. JWT is one of the famous
Okay. So
authentication vector.
basically, this session thing is basically used to do the authentication of the user way for like is a correct user logging or not
No,
or
no, no. It's session to be store the information across multiple requests.
okay.
Managing the
Authentication you
state
have
of
to,
the client, right?
yeah, authentication you have to take care,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but
that
you
no.
store the information.
Yeah, we that is what I'm asking. If we store the information now, how that same functionality we are now managing in the new architecture or like microservices and all. Same thing we might use, right? We might require also, right, in our new REST and all.
Hmm.
How we are doing it in the REST way now, in RESTful services.
In the old architecture, we used to do authentication for one time and we used to store that information. Okay. So we don't authenticate for every time. So unless the session is available. But in the new architecture, we do authenticate for every request.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
So
Okay.
the
So.
authentication architecture itself, it got changed. With the
Mm,
HTTP session, we do authenticate and we store in the session. Every time we go and check in the session, is this guy authenticated or not? But in the new architecture, every time we perform that authentication, we go to authentication manager or something, we do check, is this
okay. Okay.
client is authenticated or not? Is this token is valid or not? If it is not valid, we
Okay.
will valid.
For every hit, we will do the validation.
Yes,
Previously, it was like once you will log in, it will store until you log out.
yes. And how
Oh,
this session is going to be managed? It's like that session will be created. Okay, I will cover that one also. How the sessions are going to be managed in the multi-node deployment. Okay. Yeah. So for example, you send the request from the browser. Okay. So like kind of banking application, right? You just type ICICI.com or HDFC.com. It goes to that particular server, right? It goes to that particular server and it checks, right? okay, for example, you are storing that info. Okay, we are against authenticating against database. Mostly we do that database application only. We do store these credentials in the database. Okay, and we do check whether this request is valid or not. If it is valid request, then we will store that information in the session. Okay, so going forward, right, when the second request comes, we need to identify, okay, this request is, again, I have to check into the session or not, how that is going to be happen, before setting this token, that authentication information in the session. After setting that authentication information in the session, we will send that session ID to the client by keeping that in the cookie. Okay, mostly it's like J session ID. Okay, if you just log in into your server, this one, your ICICI Bank or HDFC, you see after logging in the header parameters or in the request URL, you see some kind of session ID, right? J session ID. So where we will keep this session ID maintained. Okay, and when the second request comes, right after logging in, when the next request comes, the client will send that session ID back to the server. Okay, that session ID back to the server. That will be part of cookie. Some cookie, they will send that session ID back. So by taking this server, so server will take care about this entire architecture. Server will read that session ID and it will identify the appropriate session. Because for one, like ICICI Bank, at particular time, right? For example, session is storing for 2 minutes or 5 minutes. In that lifespan of 5 minutes, there are millions of customers are logging in. Right? There are millions of customers are logging in. Which customer is associated with which session is going to be mapped by an ID called J session ID. Okay, that session particular ID, we will keep it in the cookie and send it to the client, and it will come back after some time and we read it and we identify the session manager. I am kind of expertise in these things, but now I am also legacy in the market because nobody is using these sessions now, right? Yes. So this is for one node deployment, but in the real time, we don't have something like this, right? We have kind of multi-node deployment. For example, we do have load balance, right? Server 1, server 2, server 3. Okay. So we will have some kind of load balancer here, right? Some kind of load balancer. So whenever the request comes to the server, so maybe it goes to server 1, maybe sometimes it goes to server 2, it goes to server. But we don't ask again and again, right? Do you notice this? ICICI Bank or HDFC Citibanks are running on a single node? No, right? There are multiple nodes. Server 1, server 2, server 3. Then how exactly the session is sharing across these multiple servers? These are different servers, right? Okay, so how this is going to be handled, in the background, all these servers will have a common share area. There the sessions information will be stored. Okay, there the session information will be stored. So which server to which server the request is coming doesn't matter. It will go and get the same session information. Okay, it's going to go and get the same session information. So that particular session information will be taking it from the common sharing area across this load balancer. So when you configure this load balancer for the servers, right, so this kind of feature will be enabled. And even though we have multiple servers and the request is going to different servers, right? Every operation, we cannot guarantee that the same request goes to same server all the time, right? Obviously, based on the load, the request the request may go to different servers, even though the servers can able to manage the session. How in the sense, because in the multi-node deployment, the session management is going to be a different architecture. Okay, but anyway, this is inbuilt support from servers. You don't need to worry about it. Okay, whenever we enable load balancing, those things going to be happening. But now it's like fully containerization now came, right? So no sharing concept, no nothing, right? If you want to share any information, use database. If you want any fast retrieval, go for NoSQL. You want to focus more on transaction management, go for RDBMS. Okay, so nowadays no session, nothing, no management, session management, no authentication, nothing.
Okay, sir.
It's good, because we are going towards like IT management with is going to be managed with less cost. The old mechanism, whatever we discussed, we need application servers, load balancing. It's cost effective, right? So if you go for Docker containerization, mostly it's like open source with very less cost. You can manage all this. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Any more questions?
No, no, I'm fine. That's what the only doubt was having. Like, how, if we are removing it, then how we are managing, like,
It's a authentication per request now.
I understood now. Now I can correlate what I'm doing right now.
Sunil, like we'll be looking into JWT authentication, right?
Yes, that we will learn as part of security, Spring Security module.
So other than JWT, any other like authentications are there? Like actually?
Yeah, security is most complicated thing in this IT world. Each and every company will follow different architecture, right?
Yeah.
But JWT is a common thing. That's why we are focusing on it. Some people can use OAuth too. Some people can spend money also. JWT is somewhat, it's a kind of free and open source. That's why like most of the people are opting it. But some people can spend money to get the security, like third part vendor security,
Yeah.
they will get it.
No,
Okay.
even some of them are using this token method. Like you will pass the token as a authorization while passing your request, and some are using dynamic token authorization. Some are using static token authorization. Like on average,
JWT is a dynamic only. Open
Yeah, yeah.
source you get dynamic.
Yes, correct.
But
Oh, I think in OAuth also it will be dynamic. They will use.
yeah, OAuth is completely a different protocol. It's like JWT is a particular module. It takes care about only tokenization. But whereas OAuth is complete protocol. It's like heavy infrastructure you need to invest.
Yes, yes, that's correct.
Okay, and there are some third-party vendors who are supporting security. You have to pay the money, and every request they do give some configuration setup. You have to do setup, so every request they will validate it. It's like more secure, but you need to spend money. So I cannot guarantee that all the companies will use the JWT. No, I cannot guarantee you that. But JWT is common thing. At least one security mechanism, if you know, then you can correlate, and when you jump into that particular project, you can learn those things. So at security will going to be changed from company to company.
Yes, yeah, especially like in like free projects, they will go for JWT.
JWT, yes. Most of the companies they go for JWT.
But like we are using Gatekeeper, like anything like that. Some like I want to know the names or like just different options.
I don't know exactly. You need to check it in the Google. That's what I'm telling, right?
Yeah.
There are any number of security mechanisms are available. Next generation supplier management, something is there. Something is coming. I should get the complete name, then we can check into the Google whether it's an open source or not. Okay, Gatekeeper policy. Sure. Yeah. So, but anyway, I will cover only JWT. The remaining things you have to learn, OAuth or some other. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. So we can quickly close this redirect and forward. Then we can complete this like because we are not going to use redirect or forward. Okay. So I will cover some scenario. For example, you might have seen this payment gateway, right? So from your browser, you do enter some like some kind of payment gateway interaction domain. So actually, they don't collect the money; they do redirect it to some third party, right? For example, irctc.com. So they will redirect you, right? So actually, how these things are going to happen, you actually go to IRCTC. So they didn't integrate it, right? They didn't integrate it with payment. So payment it should be redirected to some service. So when they want to go to the payment gateway, we already discussed, right? Redirect status code 302 will be sending back to the browser. So when browser receives a status code 302 in the header response header, so browser will immediately create another request, and it will be sending to the payment gateway side. So once the payment gateway process the payment, whether it's going to successful or failure payment processing, again it has to come back, right? Again you have to come back to the IRCTC. Again they will send back the response to the site, right, to the browser, and they will send again 302. Okay, and they will send that information to again the request going back to our applications, right? So redirect we used to use to communicate with the some external system, right? So all these things are like browser itself can do it. You don't need to do it. Usually when you go for IRCTC and you pay some amount, right? Obviously that entire redirection happens. So that time browser will show some kind of message, right? Don't refresh or don't press back button. Wait until you see this payment site. Once you enter the payment details and click submit, so once the amount that has detected of failure authentication, again the request is coming back to your IRCTC, right? So some kind of message you would have been seen that, right? Saying that then redirecting back to merchant vendor, right? So please don't refresh or don't press back button. So these kind of things is going to be happen just because of redirect. So how are we gonna achieve that redirect? In servlet we have servlet context, right? Get redirect. We use servlet response or servlet response dot send a redirect. So by using that mechanism, we do redirect the request, and you just call servlet response dot send a redirect. Automatically, response will have header status saying that 302. I will show one example, clear example, so you will get an idea. Okay, so when you call servlet response dot send a redirect and you give that URL, particular URL, so that automatically servlet will set the header saying that okay, the 302 status code. 302 status code. When the browser sees the 302 status code, then browser will check one response header. What is that? Location. So here we will give it, it's going to be there, right? Which site it has to redirect. So it's going to be payment gateway. Then it's going to be payment gateway URL. Okay. So the request will be going to the payment gateway. Okay. The request will be going to the payment gateway. So once the payment gateway processing is done, then again they call servlet response. Okay, that is with respect to servlet. With respect to servlet, Spring MVC or Spring Boot, we don't directly call servlet response, right? So we do call a short keyword called redirect. Okay, so for example, now I go to this controller, I enter redirect home. So I use a short notation, redirect, but internally it's the same mechanism. Servlet response dot. If you want, you can just see that method. HTTP servlet. Okay, response. Just import that. HTTP servlet response. Okay, so it's internally this same mechanism, right? Response dot send redirect, right? Here you need to give the URL. So this is what we used to do with the servlet. But when it is coming to the Spring, you not supposed to touch response requests and all. That's why, okay, they are providing a short notation, redirect. So automatically, internally, it's going to be HTTP servlet response dot send redirect. And see here, I will enter redirect home on the browser. What will happen? Automatically the Google page will be opened and it will show COVID-19 search. Okay, in the Google search, COVID-19 will be open. So that is what is a redirect. So like this, you just send it to the redirect, and I will show you when the google.com COVID page is opening. I will show you that 302 header parameter. So let me start this. Right, let me run this in the server. So run as run server. Okay. So to see the response header parameter on the browser, okay, you need to enable developer tools. Okay, developer tools. Next, finish. Yeah, let the server get started. So to see anything what is happening in the background, you need to open the developer tools. On Windows, it's going to be functional functional key F12, or else you just right click and click, select inspect, shift U, right? Control shift I, automatically the developer tools option will be available. Every browser has inbuilt developer tool support. You don't need to install anything. Just press functional key F12 or right click inspect. So we can track each and every call which is happening on the screen. For example, if you open some, yeah, functional key F12, okay, you just type Google, okay, github.com or Google, just go to network tab. So you could see how many calls are happening in the background, right? There are two calls, but internally there are so many calls, right? So it's loading so many JSP images, right? Images, scripts. There are so many calls are happening. So yeah, so you can track each and everything. And if you want to apply some filter, right? Filter, so you can enable that filter. So you want to see only JavaScript calls, you want to see only CSS calls, you want to see only XHR, right? XHR, which means actual HTTP calls, right? You can filter that, okay? You can apply the filter also. You want to remove the filter, you just click on it, okay? Click on it. Anyway, this is like completely, yeah, you can clear the console. Yeah, just select all to remove the filter. Just select all to remove the filter. Okay, so again, let's go to our application. So I think it started. It started. Okay, yeah, just copy this URL. Okay, and just type redirect, right? What is the, yes, first of all, servlet path spring slash redirect resource path slash home, redirect slash home. So let me clear the console, okay? And I want to see only XHR. I don't want to focus on JavaScript and CSS links, right? So I will send the request. Okay, to my application. It internally redirects to some Google page with COVID search. Google page with COVID search. Just, okay, just send the request. Yeah. Yeah, I think let's see all the requests, right? So this is what is the request which we sent, right? Actually we entered URL for my home, right? This one, spring MVC java config spring redirect. You see there is one response header parameter. What is that? 302. Did we set that? No, right? Response header parameter 302, right? And when the response header has 302, headers response header, status 302, there is one more parameter, right? Location. So whatever the redirect URL you're going to return from your application, that is going to be response header location. So it will automatically take that parameter. It will automatically take browser will understand, okay, whenever it sees that status code 302, it will automatically takes that location parameter and it send the request to that particular URL. So this is how you can just search Google search, right? COVID-19 Q COVID space means place, right? URL encoding pattern. Place means space 19. So automatically there is one search will be open automatically with the COVID-19, right? COVID-19. So that's how we do use redirect, and we do integrate with a payment gateway and all, right? Payment gateway and all we do implement it. So you just try this time whenever you are trying for IRCTC, just go to your browser and open the functional key and debug whether they are doing the same redirect or not. Okay, to integrate with the payment gateway. Okay, so we do use redirect to interact with outside application, right? So this is little costly. Unwantedly don't use. If you want to communicate a servlet within your application, if payment gateway is part of your application, don't do this because it's cost effective, right? You are sending a request with the status code 302, browser has to prepare one more request and go. Again, it goes to payment gateway. Again, payment gateway will prepare one more request and it is coming with. So all these are somewhat complicated scenarios, right? Because whenever you do 302, right? So some kind of any transaction management is there. So we will lose the transaction management. That is the reason why payment gateway redirection, as part of payment gateway redirection, the browser clearly shows message. Okay, don't refresh, don't press back button, don't touch mouse. Okay, don't touch your mouse or system for a couple of seconds. We will take you to the corresponding site, payment gateway or merchant site. So it's better to be silent whenever you are dealing with payment gateway instead of clicking or refreshing, right? Yeah. So so that's the reason why it is somewhat risky and cost effective. So if the resource is part of your application, no need to do the redirect. So redirect should be used for only external resource communication. External resource communication. If resource is part of your system, you no need to use redirect. You no need to use redirect. You can use forward, right? So I enter forward test. It goes to my user login screen. I enter forward test. It goes to user login. But forward works only for within the context, within that particular application only it should work. If you want to go to some other application, then you have to use redirect. So let's try this one also. So run this application and just I type enter. I mean I just enter URL forward test, and I could able to see the login screen. Okay. Last time I mean we entered redirect, right? Redirect. This time it's going to be forward slash test. Okay, and you could see the difference clearly. Last time I entered redirect home, but the URL got changed. This time I will enter forward test to see. I can see for sure. We will see the home screen. I think we missed the spring context for this required. Spring forward test. Okay, we will see the login screen, but the URL not change, right? So forward for forward, right? URL will not change. For redirect, it's completely a new request. It's completely a new request. So obviously URL also got changed. And through as it is forward and it's internal communication, you can share the information. You can share the information, no problem. But when it is coming to redirect, it is a completely different request. So you have to configure that request sharing information through request header. Okay, so redirect is costly. Okay, it's we're gonna send some new request, right? So unwantedly sending a new request is costly. But if you want to communicate with some external system, it is redirect. If you want to communicate within the system, it's going to be forward. Okay, so all the payment gateway interactions redirect. All error handling mechanism. For example, like database failure happened, right? So we need to forward it to error page saying that, okay, at this point of time, we are unable to process it, come back after some time. Error page is part of our application, right? So that is going to be forward. So error handling mechanism is forward. Payment gateway interaction is redirect. Okay. So this is all about redirect and forward. This is servlet concept only, nothing new. Even servlet also you can do forward. Forward can be happen in servlet API in two ways, right? Request.get request dispatcher.forward. Request servlet request.get request dispatcher. First you get the request dispatcher object. From there you do forward. So the request will be forward. But redirect is different. Redirect happen to response. Response that send the redirect. It goes to the client with the 302 status. But forward, no new request. It is for internal communication. Okay. Once upon a time, this was a very famous interview question. Like around 5 to 10 years before, people used to ask this kind of mandatory question: what is redirect? What is forward? What is the difference between redirect and forward? No, nobody knows this concept itself. The interviewer itself, it doesn't know what is this redirect and forward. So now, sometimes he might ask, sometimes he may not ask. Okay, but microservices point of view, we don't use this mechanism. Okay, we don't use this mechanism. Okay, so this is all about redirect and forward. Okay, so tomorrow we will see how we can intercept the request. When the request is coming to the controller, I wanted to do some pre-handling, post-handling. I wanted to log time, each request logging. For each request, we want to log some time, right? How much time it is taking. That we can do it by using interceptors. But anyway, this is also legacy concept. The latest is filter, servlet filter, right? Servlet filter is the latest. That is what we're going to use in the Spring Boot microservices architecture. Okay, I will show these examples tomorrow, filters and that. Then later I will show you exception handling. Okay, every microservice will have exception handling mechanism. If mobile not found, we're not supposed to throw 500 error code. We should give a different error message, right? Just a few minutes before we saw, right? When the mobile is not found, we are throwing some big error message. That is the default exception handling, and that is not working for XML. But that is not the case in the real time. You have to do exception handling for microservices also, no doubt at all. There are so many ways we can do it. Okay, I will show each and every one based on your use case. You can implement that in the real time. Okay, we will implement all this. We go with the global exception handling controller advice. So that is what we gonna use it in the microservices mostly. Okay, so that we will see tomorrow. So tomorrow our microservices are going to be exception handle supporting, right? Our microservice mobile service, you will get good exception handling support. Sorry, today it's 10 minutes late. Any questions? Yeah, we can stop for today. Any questions you can ask? If not, we can wind up the session.
No questions, Sunil.
Yeah. What about others? Abhi, Chintesh, Hari, Jega, Madhu, Shiva, Venkat, Vijay.
Tomorrow, how much time? Like up to?
We will have the same timing, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
8 to 10. But I am expecting Sunday also we will have the session for this Sunday. 1.5 hours you have to spend for me. It's actually not for me, for you. Lockdown, right? At least until lockdown period, we will have the regular sessions. Once the lockdown completes, we will take holidays. If you want, I can give Saturday, Sunday also. But at least for lockdown, anyway, you are not going out, right? No movie, no malls, no parks open. So obviously you can stay in home, right?